Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for coming out, Chi. I really appreciate you coming out for this. I've heard about you for a while from my wife and a lot of the things that you guys have been doing together, but unfortunately we didn't have a chance to meet just because of the pandemic. And, you know, when we finally got the chance to hang out with you and your family, and I started talking to you and learned a lot about you, and your story was very inspirational and very much a really quintessential sort of, I started from this point here and look at where I'm at now. Look at the life that I built for myself and my family and my husband. And it was such a good, and I know I got a part of it the day that I was there, but it was such a good, it was just so inspiring for me to hear that I really wanted to spend time with you to actually learn more about what you actually went through. Because I feel it's something that a lot of people would love to hear and that a lot of people can learn from, as far as what it takes to make it, the things that you've gone through that if I were to meet you on the street, I probably would have never guessed, and to see where you've come from since then. So thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your day to do this. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
So what really, I should say, got my interest peaked is the fact that you came here, or you and your sister came here from Laos, correct?
Yeah, there's actually, I have 3 siblings, so there's actually a total of 4 of us.
Wow.
We came from Laos. We're Chinese, but from Laos. And yeah, my parents immigrated here in 1980 from Laos, and we've been here ever since.
So how did that come up? How did they, was it a political thing where everybody's trying to get out of Laos at that time?
Yeah, it basically was to escape communism, from what I'm told, because I was quite young when we came. But yeah, my parents fled Laos to Thailand, to a refugee camp, and it was to escape communism. I believe it was, Laos was more like a democracy before, and it was being taken over by communism. And so my parents felt like with communism, you don't really get a chance to succeed in life because you're controlled by so many aspects, including finances. You could only get so far with the communists. So yeah, they left Laos, and we ended up in Thailand in a refugee camp in a town called Ubon, which actually is near the beach. But yeah, we were in the refugee camp for, I think, about a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was it that, because I know that I think Cambodia at the time was going through a lot of turmoil. Did that really affect the people of Laos, or were you too young to see that at that point?
It was about the same. It was, the Vietnam War. I think just all during that whole era is when everything started to crumble, and then immigrating to the U.S. was made possible for Southeast Asians, and so that was sort of, I think, the time frame where a lot of Southeast Asians did come to the U.S.
Wow. And you came with your sister and your brother, and you were the oldest?
No, I have an older sister, my brother, an older brother, and then it's me, and then my younger sister.
Okay.
And it was actually a lot more of us. My dad ended up also bringing my grandmother with us, which is his mom, because he lost his father to the communists. He was killed basically by mistaken identity. I believe they thought he was a spy, but he was just a truck driver. So he went missing, and my dad ended up finding him, but he was already killed along with his older brother. So he took on the role of the head of household, my dad, and so he brought my grandmother with us, and also my uncle, who was also killed by the communists when he went looking for my grandfather. He had 3 kids, 3 boys, and his mom, their mom just couldn't take care of them financially by herself in Laos. So my dad also brought the 3 brothers with us. So on paper, it was actually, he had 7 kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a big family.
Jeez. So when you came here, how did it work with, because I know that there's a different name that you took on or that your sister took on.
Yeah. So it was. I mean, the immigration process was quite complicated. At the time, uh, you have what's called like paper names, and so you have to be sponsored by blood relatives or somehow have relationships to where you're getting sponsored to. And initially, we were supposed to get sponsored to Australia. And we had an uncle in Australia. So on paper, all of our names were basically we had adopted his name. And so when we immigrated to the U.S., they were these names, but it wasn't really our name of our origin. So that was interesting, but as soon as we were able to get citizenship and everything, my parents did change their last name back to Ye, which is our of Chinese origin, which is our last name. I as well changed my last name to Ye, but Sam, my younger sister, and my brother, they still kept the name that were our legal name, I should say, not paper name, but our legal names, which is
Right.
Vilaysack. Yeah.
That's that's the one from your uncle, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, we got sponsored through IRC, which is the International Refugee Committee or something like that. And they handled all the paperwork and stuff to get us, here. And they, provided the plane tickets, and basically once we got to the U.S., they gave us finances for about 2 months to survive. And then after that, you apply for like government assistance. And that's how we survived for a while until my parents could get on their own feet.
Wow. And again, you were how old specifically?
4.
Okay, you were 4. So I'm trying to think. There's nothing that stands out in your mind from your time in Laos, correct? It's all just a blur?
I don't remember anything. I have pictures of when we were in the refugee camp, so it's a little bit surreal. Not until we were really adults, when we look at the picture, do we know the depth of what we actually went through. So seeing the pictures, holding the sign up, with your refugee number, it makes it really like, wow.
That was...
Yeah, it was like, that was us, but not until adulthood, I think, till we actually like saw the depth of that.
You're right. That would be a surreal experience to look back on yourself 4 years old and to say, this is actually where we came from.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. And I have a photo of me and a bunch of aunts and uncles and relatives and we're just sitting in front of these huts. They're basically straw huts in the refugee camp and literally made out of bamboo. And everybody was like super happy in the picture and just smiling and having a great time. And, you would think like being in that situation, you'd feel really just kind of depressed and sad. But I think there was just so much hope. And, I asked my dad, why is everybody so happy? And he's like, because we knew we were on the path to somewhere that was going to be great for us, and so that little time of suffering in the camp was like, it was still happy because it was going somewhere. It was going to the U.S.
Yeah, that makes sense when you think about it, because like when we had history class and we look back to like the Japanese internment camps that we had here in this country, and the backstory with it, but then when you see people who are leaving a country that they need to get out of, you're right, it does make sense they would be filled more with hope and excitement, because this is a stepping stone to our family's future, safety, and a new world that we just can't have over here. So yeah, that does make sense now thinking of it that way.
So
Wow.
it was interesting to see, but yeah, come a long way.
I bet. So what was it like, from what you can remember, your first, I guess, couple of years here in this country, as you're getting older and you're starting to get into school? Like, what's it like for the whole family, just trying to figure out how things work?
from what I remember, I think we were maybe too young to realize that the politics of being an immigrant. Maybe we didn't realize, how much you looked out of place or were treated out of place at the time. I think we were just happy kids. My
Right.
parents had parties, and we had tons of relatives that also all immigrated to the U.S. during that time. And my dad helped so many other family members come to the U.S. as well. So it was sort of like our own little bubble. We just got together with our own relatives and family, and it was just fun. I think they kept the traditions of how family is pretty much the same, regardless of being in the U.S. or not. So I hope we can carry that on to our kids. But we just saw them working hard and giving us what they can, and I think we just appreciated it. We had nothing to compare to.
Right. Yeah. You don't know as a kid, like
Yeah.
what else is out. You just know, hey, I'm happy. I have what I need, and there is no other. Yeah.
I mean, I think just the other day I was watching, I do interior design now, and I was just watching something on TV, like on HGTV, and it's like people are house hunting, and they're like, oh, we have to have a room for each and every one of our kids. And, and I just said to my husband the other day, like, gosh, it's so interesting because I've never had my own room my entire life. Like, even now, because now I'm married, obviously, but like just we came to the U.S. and it was 8 of us in one bedroom. We just had mattresses just kind of laid out in one giant room, and it was my grandmother and my aunt and my sister, and it was just all of us. We just laid there and slept in one room, and that was quite normal to us. We had a roof over our head, and everybody shared rooms. There was 2, 3, 4, 5 people in a bedroom, and it wasn't until my parents got a bit more successful that even then I still had to share a room with my sister. I mean, I shared a room with me and my grandmother, until I was probably 13, and then after that it was me and my sister. So it was always sharing rooms, but it just struck me that it's so different that when people are looking for houses now, it's like each child gets a room, and like what a luxury that is.
It's it's hard to say that that's a bad thing, but then coming from an area where you just were so used to your space is literally shared with 4 or 5 people, and that's what and you become used to it. But then, when you have the ability to say one person, like one child gets their own room, and we had to account for that when we buy a house and we're spending millions of dollars, especially around here for a house. It's you want to provide for your children, and I totally get that for everybody there too. But then there's also that part where it's like understanding where you came from and how to make your life better in the future. Like that's definitely something that I guess as a parent you would know more than me. Like, how do you find that balance of saying, I want to provide for my children, at the same time I don't want to give them all these luxuries that I never had and maybe they don't appreciate it? How do you balance that?
It's hard. I would say that's probably one of the hardest parts of parenting this day and age. Not to raise such entitlement is tough when you live in a society where all the other kids are getting this, and especially where we live, it's a pretty affluent community, and so your kids can't help but compare, and they're surrounded by what they're surrounded by and what they know, and so that's what they compare to. So to try to raise them with the values that I had growing up, where not everything was handed to us, it's quite difficult and quite a balance, where you still want to teach them to be scruffy and to work hard and not just get anything you want, but at the same time it's like, oh, but my friends, they all have cell phones starting in 3rd grade or whatever, and it's so it's difficult to parent that way. Like my older son, who's now 25, but in high school, I still remember, he didn't get a smartphone or an iPhone until junior year in high school, which is, I think, pretty pretty late.
At that time,
And
yeah.
yeah. And so it was just, I just remember always a struggle with him that it was like, well, all my friends have cell phones and they don't have to pay for theirs, but he did have to pay for his own cell phone bill. So it's just small stuff like that that I think we try to instill just so that they learn the value of money, that you can't just get what you want when you want it, and to work for it.
That's tough. And it's something that I see just, in the course of growing up now is that, yeah, you're right. I didn't get a cell phone until I think it was 17. And that was those old, like, pack bell, like brick thingamajigs with a little antenna that you couldn't take down and then the green screen. And I was just so used to it in high school because nobody had a cell phone. So it was just easy to say, okay, I'm going to call you at this time at your house, be there, and then we'll meet up at this place at that time. And we got through it. But you're right. Then now is that, and it kind of goes back to the earlier point of, being able to provide for your children so much so, where's the balance? There's a big challenge that I see with, just the cost of living here, for example, is so much that you really need both parents to work just to be able to make the mortgage payments, the car payments, tax, everything. So a lot of the kids end up sort of being raised with, iPads and iPhones because, it keeps them occupied. They can learn, but then they make it too dependent on it at a young age. And it's, how do you find that balance as a parent to say, use this for what it's meant for, but not so much so where now you become so dependent on it. Now you're out in the real world and you got to worry about work skills, social skills. And it's like, it's a challenge that I see and I don't really know what the answer is.
Yeah, I don't know if there is an answer. You just have to, like any other trend, you have to parent, I guess, as though it's a trend, right? It's things change and evolve, and it's I think for me personally, I just try to instill how I was raised by my parents and instill those values from our culture, but yet still, try to be modern and be with the times and try to be, parent correctly with everything that's thrown at their faces right now with technology and social media. It's just, it's different times.
It's definitely different times. So like when you were growing up and you were like teenage years and you're getting ready to go to college, what was like your life plan at that point? Did you have something? Did your parents kind of pressure you to say, you probably should be getting married now and start having kids and all that good stuff?
No, we had immigrant parents who really didn't know the whole process of how getting to college worked. They worked basically when my parents acquired donut shops, which ended up being their lifeline in their career. They worked 7 days a week. And from, my dad started at like 11 o'clock, midnight to 7 in the morning baking donuts. And then my mom would be there also from 3-4 in the morning and getting ready to work. It's just, they were never around. They basically worked all the time. And so for us, we would just get ourselves ready to get to school. My grandmother took care of us. She would walk us to school, or one way or another we get to school. But my parents were barely around because they worked so much. So in terms of like getting guidance for going to college and all that, they didn't know. All they could tell us was do good in school, go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, and then that was it. There was just, we didn't have the examples of what to do and how to get there. So, it was sort of figure it out on your own.
Right. Was there a lot of, or not a lot of, but did you have that pressure, or not pressure, just, I guess, cultural expectations that as you go out and you get married and you have your own kids in your own home, that it then becomes not a burden, but like a responsibility or a duty to give back to your parents, like bring them into your home, take care of them as they age, and they in turn help you raise your own children and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because we had my grandmother with us pretty much our whole lives, we saw that you take care of your parents, you take care of your elders. It's just the way that it was. And so I think, yeah, for all four of us, we do feel a big, not even really pressure or responsibility, but just naturally, like, we will take care of our parents and we'll do what we have to do to keep them healthy and happy. So I don't think it's a pressure. I think it's just more of a way of how we were raised.
Right.
And it's privilege, really, to be able to take care of our parents and to help out, because everything we have now is because of them.
Yeah.
Right. So
I see a lot of young kids now, young kids, 20 some years old, and you ask them about their parents and what they're growing up and whatever. And I know there's no ill will, but when you talk to them, you hear a lot of me, 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 me. I need to make this money. I need to go career. I need to go move here. I need to go do this, do this, do this. And then in some cases, some of the parents are like, yeah, you go off, do your own life. Don't worry about me. We're going to be fine over here. But then some parents do feel that, I raised you and you're going off. That's good. But then,
what about us?
Exactly, sort of a thing. I can see a lot of more people. I mean, occasionally I go into some of the senior living facilities, and I see a lot of the people who are in there, and every now and then I talk to them and kind of ask them about where their kids are at and what they're doing. And a lot of them are, my son visits me every 6 months for a day or so and to sign papers or to do whatever. And, my grandchildren, every once in a while, they bring him over. And you get the sense that they don't have the connection with their children and their grandchildren like they used to, or like maybe they would have wanted. At the same time, it's, do you want to be a burden to your children when your children have to go out and try and make a life in this world?
Yeah.
It's
I think it's definitely a cultural thing. I don't know. In Asian culture, it is very, very normal to take care of your parents. And like my parents, there's no expectation that we raised you, now you should take care of us. They always want us to do what we can to be successful. And I think that it's just natural for us to do what we can to help them out. And so it's just how I would love my kids to grow up and be as well. Like, I'm not asking my kids to take care of me, but like, I think just by them seeing how we are with our parents and taking care of, their grandparents, I hope that resonates with them and just sort of builds the character of family. But yeah, the expectation's not there. The hope is.
Exactly. It makes me wonder, because if I never have children, who takes care of me when I get older? And I do have a couple aunts who they've been single their whole life and they've just adapted to it. They have all the financial thing planned out. Hey, when I die, this is what's going to happen. It's all taken care of. Don't worry about me. And on the one hand, it's okay. But on the other hand, you want to go over and be a part of their life, but they're so used to being on their own that they're like, nope, you don't, we'll see each other for family gatherings, but don't feel like you have to come and always be there. So it's something that I do think about when I get older, like how is that going to look for my generation as we age, whether we have children or not. I wanted to ask you about how you got into your current career now. So when you were younger and you got married and you had your kid, your first child was 25?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what was your mindset at that point when you first had your son? Like, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I want to work too. I want to have a partnership. How does that?
Yeah. So my older son is actually from a previous relationship. I was a single mom for a while. I basically had him when I was younger, and it was because I had him younger. I had to figure out what to do. I was with his father for basically a high school sweetheart, and just sort of young and naive, and but once we parted ways, like I had to figure out how am I going to make this work. And so I started out by going to just kind of doing odd and end jobs, and then eventually went to nursing school, and I got into the medical field. and I was working, doing nursing jobs at urgent care clinics, and then eventually I started doing research, colon cancer research at UC Davis Medical Center. And so it's just sort of like you got to do what you got to do to survive as a single parent and make ends meet. But I think that it wasn't my true passion. I remember when I was going to school, my mom was like, "What are you thinking? You're the kid that was the most scared of needles, and like to get shots and immunizations, they had to get like 2 or 3 people to come in and hold you down, And like I always remember her saying that to me, because in the back of my head I thought, yeah, it's true. I was completely scared of needles. I still am to this day. How I got through the schooling and stuff, that's another story. But it just wasn't my passion, and it just sort of evolved. I decided to leave that field, and at the time, everyone was getting their real estate license. So I thought, I'll just try to get a real estate license. And so I did the schooling, I got my license, and then ended up landing a job for a builder, tract home builder, and sold real estate with them for a while here in Alameda. Actually, was my first big gig. But soon after that, it was sort of like, okay, there's no more homes to sell here. I guess I'll move on to the next community. But then I had the opportunity to work on model home designs with this building company. And so I think I always loved it. I remember for one snippet in time when we were younger, my older sister did move out for a bit. And I think for a few months, I got her room to myself. And I just remember overhauling it, and just like I went out and I bought new comforters and all these things, and I just decorated it. And my mom was like, "What are you doing, wasting all this money?" But I just was like, "This is mine. Like, I want to make this really nice." And I just loved it. And so when I got into model home design, I loved it. I felt like this is not work. This is just fun, making things look pretty. And when people walk in, everybody just feels so good, whether it's theirs or not. But when you go into a model home, you're just kind of like, oh, this is so nice. And you start to dream, like, can I really have this? And so that's just kind of where my passion started. And eventually, as I got married, and my husband and I were given the opportunity for this ranch style home that I was like, we need to renovate this house and remodel it. And having not really done any of that before, I took the whole thing on and remodeled this whole entire house. And before we knew it, I had people knocking on the door like, "Hey, what's the paint color on your walls?" or friends and family saying, "Would you help me with mine?" And it started out that way. I did a sister-in-law's house, and then I did friends, and then it turned into, you should charge a little bit. So it was like, okay, I'll just charge a little bit just for fun. And then eventually the referrals just kept coming, job after job after job, and it's full-fledged now. I could barely keep up on my own. It's been great. I've not had to advertise one bit. I'm terrible at taking pictures and Instagram. I'm so bad at all of that, but it's not really needed because the word of mouth is happening, and
that's incredible. I want to get into the interior design in a second, but I just got to tell you that your oldest son is 25 years old. In 25 years, for you to go from, and I'm guessing his father just wasn't in the picture the whole time, right?
No.
Okay. To do all this essentially by yourself, go into medical school and learn, or in the nursing industry, doing that, dealing with needles, which you don't like, and then saying, okay, I'm going to go from there to real estate. That is not an easy gig to get into. I mean, I've talked to at least one real estate person already, and just the time you have to put in just to get your feet. I mean, you're doing 60-hour weeks. You're not getting anything when you start out with all that time in, and then to get to where you're at now with the interior designing part, like, that is something that is just so, it's incredible, and how humble you are with it about what you've had to go through to support your son. Like, this is all just to make sure that he had a life to live, that you could provide him with everything.
Yeah.
Your own personal happiness, it wasn't really an issue. It's what can I do for him? And I'm going to do all these things, try these different avenues, careers that I never thought I would have tried, but still did it because he's the most important thing to me. And I need to make sure that he's taken care of. Like, that is just so, it's a work ethic that I don't want to say it's missing, but I think a lot of people don't understand just how much, is involved with, as you get older and you have responsibilities, especially children, what you are willing to do to make their lives that much better and give them the thing or the opportunity for things that you may never have had. Like, that's just, it's an incredible thing right there, just to hear that. And your trend, just to put it in the timeline, 25 years, which seems like it could be a while, but that's nothing. Yeah. Before you knew it, he grew up and you've done all this.
Yeah. I mean, it was really my motivation. You kind of have to do things to survive for your children, or, I don't know if I'd take the same path if it was just for me, but you don't really have a choice when you're put in a situation where you've got to make ends meet. And, he grew up very humble because we couldn't afford anything. He shared a bedroom with me. We were in a 1-bedroom apartment, and, we would go to Target to get the essentials, and he'd never asked for toys. He would always say, for my birthday, can I have this? And, I think it's because he knew, like, it is what it is. This is what we have, and this is what you can get. And so it was, it was rough, but you gotta just have to do what you have to do. And I was just fortunate enough that, things turned out for me. I just feel like once I kind of put my head to something, like, I'm going to do this, I go after it, but like wholeheartedly. There's no like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's okay. You're going to leave this medical field that pays pretty darn good, to go pursue something you know nothing about. It was like, you got to be all in or it's not going to work.
Right.
So,
Like, that's tough. Just if you were a single person, no kids, no mortgage, nothing to hold you down, that's tough enough right there to go into the unknown. Like, I'm going to take a risk here, spend money on schooling or whatever, and then hope it works out. And if it doesn't, well, I'm back to square one. That's tough enough when you're single. To be a single parent, and then just, you got to pay your mortgage and all the bills, or rent, whatever it is, your rent, all the bills, plus buy clothes for your son, and plus all the school supplies, everything that just adds up. To do that then is just even more incredible that you were able to do that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I asked you about when you came, like how you guys came here from Laos and everything that you guys experienced, is it puts it all together for me now, like the upbringing. You were growing up in a room where you were sharing it with 8 or so people, and, you were used to living life a sort of way, and you were happy. And that when you were put in a situation where it's me and my son, how am I going to do this? It kind of just goes back to your upbringing. Like, you got to make it happen.
You just got to do it.
We start out with nothing compared to what some people start out with today in this country, and you're still able to make it happen.
Yeah.
It's like the American dream that we don't talk about anymore. That almost like. And that's the one thing that, if I ever had children, that I would be nervous about, is that, am I going to give so much to them to provide for them that they will not appreciate when they're on their own what life was like when you have nothing? My dad used to always tell me that we were poor. I mean, we weren't poor, but he would always tell us that because he wanted us to appreciate that, be happy with this right now, because I'm working 2 jobs and your mom's working too, and we're just trying to pay the mortgage. And then I know your friends may have this new toy or that new video game or whatever, but it's not going to be easy for us, so don't expect it. And I learned early on about not getting the things that I thought I wanted from because my friends had it, or now would be social media. Kids go on the phone now and somebody they don't know has the new toy, and I want that. So it's an experience that I hope that we can pass on to the next generation now, that, in a way I kind of feel for them, because they just happen to grow up in an area where everybody has a cell phone. Everybody's on Instagram or Snapchat or Twitter or whatever it is. And this is all that they know. And how are they going to deal with it when they get older? But when I met your son, just how humble he was and how appreciative it was, it resonates. It shows on him that he was able to go to school at University of Washington, finish his degree, and now he's already going into the job market. And the little things about how he was so aware of everybody at the gathering that we were at. Do you need anything? Can it help you with something? Like that goes to me. It shows a lot about how you raised him and how, despite that we didn't have a lot of stuff, that he still grew up with such a great perspective on humanization and talking to people and socializing.
I hope so. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he'll be okay. I'm pretty sure he'll be okay. But let's talk about the interior design thing, because that's a career that, not a lot of people. It may be something that looks so appealing to some that I get to organize or stage things or whatever, but there's a lot of work behind it.
There's a lot of work behind it. There's just so many things that go on behind the scenes that I think people don't realize. You see and with social media, you just see so much design and style, and I love my house to look like this, and which is, it's all attainable. It really is. It's just, the actual industry itself, there's a lot of work behind it.
Wow. And is there a difference between interior design and interior decorating, or because you work more with the architectural side, correct?
Yeah. I think interior decorating is more like on the decorating surface stuff, so a little bit more like staging and styling. Interior design actually entails both. I do focus more on the architectural side and the building side. So my business is mainly helping people with new builds, and so all the hard finishes, which is like choosing the plumbing and the flooring and the tile and everything that goes into the building, but at the same time also thinking of the architectural features that normally you don't think about, like leaving enough space around a door so you could put trim around it, or layouts so that it functions for a family. And so it's more, for me, I think it is form, but it is a big part of it is function too. It's got to function right, like, for your lifestyle.
Right. Do you have I don't know if it's a theme or a specialty, like is it modern American or is it contemporary? I don't know the difference between all that stuff.
Yeah, there's I would say my style leans towards like coastal. It's like a transitional between traditional and modern, not ultra modern, but like the Hamptons.
Okay.
If you could envision the Hamptons, that's kind of the style that I personally like. So I think as my clients see my work and they're drawn to that, that's how I get my clients. Like, they hire me because they like that style. So it tends to kind of stay within that realm. I have more recently been working on like modern homes, and kind of stepping a bit outside of my style, which is what I like. I don't want to design a house for my clients that I like. I want to do something that they like. And so I think for me, my main goal when I work with clients is not to instill my personal style on them, but to take exactly what they love and what they like and make it the best version that it can be for what they want. So I may not particularly like a modern style, but if my client does, I want to make that the best version for what they want at the end result, and that will make them happy. So I don't technically agree with everything that they like with, because it's not my taste, but we'll find the best way to make it look good.
There you go. Exactly. So this career, obviously, it entails a lot of work. Like, do you have to actually like architecturally design with the drawings? And
I do that. It's some clients come to me with already architectural plans that they have done with an architect. Some come to me from the very beginning, where I work hand in hand with their architect. Some are just sort of like, I have nothing, come in and tell me if I could take this wall down or whatnot. And so, when it comes down to it, and I have to do drawings, and I do drawings just so they can see, and envision what their space can look like.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what have been some of the, I mean, obviously it sounds like it's a great career and you're passionate about it, because you have a skill that you enjoy, that you can actually take and put it to real life. Like, but what are some of the challenges with it when it comes to interacting with businesses or contractors or whatnot?
I would say the biggest challenge is working with contractors and being a woman in the industry that's focused more on the building side. And, because most interior designers, I would say, I think that a big portion of designers are female. But when you're working in like the actual building side of it, where you're every day kind of dealing with contractors and subcontractors, being a female is a bit challenging sometimes. One, I don't think that we're given I want to say respect that we have the knowledge of building. Me personally, I've encountered it quite a bit where you're treated sort of like you don't really know what you're talking about, because I'm not the one out there with the hammer and the nail and doing it physically. But that doesn't mean, I don't have the knowledge of how things should be built or should look at the end. So that part is, challenging. And I think there's also the aspect of being a female in a predominantly male field. When you're out on the job site, it's mostly contractors, they're mostly guys. And, there's a lot of whistleblowing and just really inappropriate comments being made that really should be addressed, and I've had to address it myself a few times, and it's just so that's a bit challenging. You kind of have to watch what you're wearing, and you don't want to not that what we wear should be an invitation or to get comments or to get eyes or looks, but just to avoid all that, I'm pretty cognizant of when I know I'm going to a job site, what not to wear. And then it's also kind of scary sometimes now, like going into a job site where it's completely just a construction zone and it's just you and one other guy that you don't know. So that's a little bit intimidating. I've had to, in the past couple more years, be more aware of not doing that and making sure that there's also another person there, because things could happen, something could happen. And so that part is not fun, but it is part of kind of what happens.
It's like that right there. It's something that you would think that we would have moved past. It's funny, like if you talk to our grandparent or like my grandparents, a generation, and you ask them about things that happened, back in the day, they tell you, yeah, that was just normal. Even talking to like grandmothers and whatnot, like, yeah, that was just normal. That's just what we dealt with, and we got through it, whatever. But and then you see how it sort of carried over into a newer generation where it's like, all right, it happened 50, 60 years ago, whatever, it is what it is at this point. But now we're at a point now we need to learn from what happened in the past and how we need to make sure we can't continue that in the future because of all the ramifications that it actually has. It's I can't imagine being in your position, just trying to go out there and you just do the work. You're here to do a job for a client, make sure it's done right, and then you got to deal with that on the side there too. Yeah. So if you were to, from your point of view, if you were to tell like a group of contractors now, like, I'm here to work, what is it that you'd want them to know? Like, it should be sort of obvious that I'm here to work. I'm here to do what I have to do. Is it a matter of having them know, like, hey, just understand, when you say these things to me or do these certain things, now you're kind of degrading my work. You're degrading me as a human being, whatever it is. Is that something that you just kind of feel like they need?
I would say just respect. Just give respect to the human being, really. It's not a matter of gender, male or female. It's not a matter of, it's eye candy. It's just give respect. Like, we're professionals. We're both there to do our professional jobs. Keep it professional. Mm-hmm. There's just nothing else really that they should be doing aside from that, It's not a compliment. I mean, you think you're complimenting when you're saying, oh, hey, beautiful, but it creates like this uneasiness for me or for us. It's just, instead of keeping it professional, now I've got to wonder, like, why are you saying that? Or, it's uncomfortable.
it's something that I can say as a guy, as you get older, it starts to click. Like, oh, those things that you said or did when you were 19, 20, you didn't get it then. Now you get it as you're older. Oh, yeah, I probably shouldn't do that. Probably shouldn't say that. Probably shouldn't give that impression or whatever it is, because now you see the bigger picture, especially if you have sisters, mother, or you get married, and then it starts to kind of come together. Like, oh,
Yeah.
now it's starting to sink in what all that means to somebody else.
Right, right. And I'm sure it's a compliment coming from the other end. And I get that. That's just how society has been, and and that's how it was. But I think just maybe now it's much more aware, like there's a whole nother layer to it, right? Like telling someone that they're beautiful, yeah, it's a compliment, but it also creates like a little bit of uneasiness that you shouldn't have while you're at work or wherever, unless it's obviously somebody that you know really well. But
Right. I mean, it's something that I think as time goes on, the needle's going to continue to go in the right direction.
yeah,
So
I
that's
think so.
that's the positive thing with it.
For good things to happen, I think bad things need to happen so that it can become aware, I guess.
That's a way to put it. So you have been married to your current husband now. How long?
15 years.
15 years. Wow.
Yeah. When I have another son who's 14. But yeah, so one good thing came out of the nursing is I met my husband.
Gee, and is he a surgeon?
He's a gastroenterologist.
What is that?
He's a doctor of like digestive system.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's I met him in passing. He seemed like a great person, and the fact that you guys can come together and then continue to build a life, and for him to be supportive of your job when it's like it's taking you away from him,
Yeah.
the house, the kids, whatever it is. How do you guys like manage that and balance that to find time for both of you to?
I think you just again you're gonna have to just do what you have to do, but it's really like I've always even though I work, I'm flexible with my time now, so I can schedule my day how I want it to be. So I'm always around to do the drop off, the pickups, the lunch, being mom, like the after school activities. I'm always around for that. And I think with my husband, like he always tells me, well, you don't have to work. Why are you working? I think it's just built in me. Like I have to work. I don't know what else to do with my time. But, I think for him, he just, as long as as our kids are still getting the attention that they need or getting where they need to get to, then my work is all in between that, and I feel strongly about that too, to be able to balance the two. But like I've in the past lived as a single mom where you don't have a choice to be flexible. You have to do, he was dropped off at daycare or a babysitter at 6 a.m. and not picked up till after work. It's just a matter of finding the happy medium with what you've got, and making the best out of it. Like you don't have to be rich to have kids and to raise them. Like you raise them with what you have, and I think that they adapt and they know what they have, and maybe not learn to appreciate it until they're an adult. But from my experience and just kind of watching my older son grow up, I think that appreciation comes as adulthood comes, and as parents, like that's pretty much all you wanna ask for. Like when they become sort of independent, self-sufficient, give back to society.
Yes.
Right. It doesn't matter like how rich or how poor you were, but yeah, you just kind of make the best of what you can with what you've got.
It's definitely it shows a lot about the character of both of you to be able to, because you still continue to do what you've been doing your whole life. You're working to make sure that your family is provided for, that you still are able to follow your passion in terms of what you do for a living, and that everybody is on the same page. Your husband's on the same page. The kids understand. The fact that you still, even now, are doing 50 plus hours a week and you still find time to make sure that the kids have the lunches or the picking up from school, whatever. I can't imagine how much you're just jumping around from point A to point B, and just, the amount of energy that it takes to do that for anybody. And then to be able to also say, you know, when your husband comes home, he's had a long day too, probably, and whatever he sees in the daily course of his job too. And then it's to be able to both wind down and say, okay, now this is our time to kind of catch up with each other and support each other in that way. It's you know, even now it's still hard to find that somebody who's on the same page, because a lot of times just for whatever reason, social media, society, whatever it is, we kind of get into these roles when we're married that, okay, this is my job, that's your job, and then we forget about each other because we're so focused on, okay, the kids have to be taken care of, the mortgage has to be paid, we both need to work because everything is so expensive here, we don't have a choice. And then all this frustration builds up because somebody doesn't feel they're getting enough attention or whatnot, or the kids are getting on getting on your nerves, and no one knows how to be on the same page. So the fact that you guys were able to figure that out, you know, that's incredible. And that's one of the other inspiring things that I saw from you guys, is that through all that, plenty of people could have had the same hand in life and said, that's too much for me, I'm not dealing with it, or I'm going to take the easy way out, whatever it is. And you guys still push forward with it.
Yeah. I think, you know, like, I don't know, my motto in life is you just do what you got to do, I guess. I mean, even in this past year with the pandemic, there's a lot of togetherness. But like early in the pandemic, my husband did have to work and cover COVID care. And so in March, April, May, when the pandemic first hit, when we didn't really know what we were up against, you know, it was, he did get pulled in to have to work in the COVID care area just for backup because there was such a shortage of doctors and nurses. And, you know, he had to move out for a few months just because we didn't know if he'd be bringing something home or not.
Wow.
We saw him through the window and he would wave, you know, that was also a surreal time that we weren't sure what was happening. I mean, I don't think, unless you have somebody that's in your household that's actually out there fighting it, you don't really realize the depth of how real this thing was, you know. But yeah, we lived through it, and it was just, at one point, I think my husband was like, well, here's the passwords to everything. In case something happens to me, you know, like, this is what you've got to do. And at that moment, I think I was like, whoa, it freaked me out because I thought, this is actually real, you know, how scary I could actually lose him because we don't know what this disease is, right? And thank God we are where we are now with vaccinations and everything. But just even during that time, it was so uncertain. But luckily, no one ever got COVID.
Right. And it still amazes me, like, the list keeps getting bigger on just the things that you've gone through and your family has gone through, and you still are able to have such a great attitude, a great outlook on life, and are able to push forward. The fact that he's not at home for, a couple months? Like, you know, that's enough for some people to say, I can't do this on my own, that's it, whatever it is, and walk away. And you still said, I'm gonna be there to support him. He's going through a lot that, you know, I don't want to know what he's probably seen every day. But, you know, I need to make sure our kids are taken care of, and we need to make sure that he feels supported in doing his job, because we can only see him through a pane of glass at a certain point. That's just, it's easy how we forget now that everything is pretty much opened up.
Right.
What life was actually like behind the scenes. A lot of us were so focused on, well, I can't go to the bar, I can't go to the restaurant. Mm-hmm. Some people are like, I can't work, but I can get unemployment. In the meantime, you have some healthcare workers that are like, I literally have to move out of my house for a few months because it's that real, at least where we're at over here.
Yeah. And you know, his coworkers, like, some stayed in the garage. It was really real, you know.
That's just crazy. And I think it was you that was telling my wife too about the vaccinations and about how this whole process actually works. Because I had no idea, like, when you create a vaccine for something, that I just assumed it takes like 10 years to actually develop a vaccine, because I never knew what happened behind the scenes. And I think you were telling her that a lot of it is just stuff that's red tape, you know, a matter of, it's not that that we can't develop vaccines for a certain virus, but it's just getting people to sign up for a trial, because we have to do so many trials.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as when I did research at UC Davis, I learned the back end of that because I did research for drug companies. And yeah, a lot of getting drugs approved was going through the red tape and the politics and, applying for this, and that, and then having to go through the trials. That's what really took a long time. So I think when Angela was asking me about the vaccines, it was like, could it have been done this fast? And the answer is yeah. If you're just dedicating time to just the science, it could totally be done fast. You just don't have to jump through all the hoops that you have to go through typically that for any other drug. You're able to bypass all that. So it's they did what they had to do and they got it.
It was amazing. Once it became a pandemic where people's lives were changed, everybody signed up for it. Like, hey, I'll do it. I'll do my own time. Hold on. With that too, and I don't want to get into the controversies about, the spike and all that other stuff. That's a whole nother thing. But the fact that what goes on behind the scenes, just getting people to do it and then saying, this is how fast it can be done in the future, so we know it doesn't have to take 10 years to get the next flu vaccine, because most of you are just waiting for the participants and somebody at the higher ups to actually approve this and go on to the next step. So that's crazy. I gotta tell you, it was a lot to learn right here about you.
Sorry, it was a lot.
I mean, no, it was good because, you gave me a snippet of kind of how your life was, back when we were chit-chatting. But then now to see all the innuendos about this is what life was like as a single mother. Here's what I had to do. I had to work and, going out and partying, that's a thing of the past. Like, I need to take care of my kid, and then going through all that and getting married again and then getting into interior design. The great benefits of actually doing something that you're passionate about now, dealing with some of the things that are challenges with the career, having a husband who now is away from the home for a couple of months because of the pandemic, and still balancing, trying to raise both of your sons. And that's I gotta tell you, like, I try to tell people that if you were to meet somebody walking down the street just passing by, you really have no clue what they would have gone through, what they have, what they know, what they've been. And I think hearing these kind of stories and seeing an example of somebody that's gone through all this is a really good thing for people to hear, because there's a lot of people who just, I don't want to say they get depressed, but because of how they grew up in society with a certain way, a certain outlook of thinking, they don't really realize here's how much work it does take to get from point A to point B. Here's somebody who's been dealt a hand that's not the most ideal, but how do you get through it? Who's there to support you? And I know you had your family support, so.
Yeah, I think also it's choice. You choose how you want to live. You can choose to be woe is me, or you can choose to take it by the whatever and run with it. I think it's a choice to not suffer. I say that a lot to my kids. Like, you can choose to not suffer. Like, okay, obviously there's some adversity and sometimes you don't have a choice, but you can take the negatives in your life and just choose to do the more positive with it. I always tell my kids that, like, that's the line, like, just choose not to suffer. Like, if you're having a hard time with something, like, make a change, do something about it, make that change for yourself and make that choice. So it's just, I could have chosen to be woe is me, single mom, like, this is it. I'm just gonna kind of be stagnant and make things be okay, or I could just turn it around and give my son what I didn't have, guide him and give him just a little bit more of what I didn't have, and go for it. It was just, but yeah, if I could say anything, like, make that choice, choose.
That's a great thing. That's good advice to give out there. What does the future hold for you, upcoming up?
I just need to get my younger son through high school. He'll be a freshman this year. I'd love to slow down a bit, actually, and just kind of enjoy the fruits of the labor. I've been working forever since, I could say this for my siblings too. We worked since we were like third grade, third, fourth grade. And even after getting married and having the choice to not work, I've continued to work. And, I think now I'm ready to kind of take it slower a little bit and like really take on projects that give me joy, where it's just more like I'm really enjoying the process versus like just, stressing and getting it done.
Right. I feel very comfortable in saying that I think you've earned it as far as whenever you decide it's time to take a step back and like actually enjoy the other things that you work so hard for. I do think at some point you'll probably say, I need to get my hands into something again.
I know. It's in my nature.
But that's actually, I think that's a great thing because, I've seen it in examples of people as they get older and they retire and then they don't really do anything.
Yeah.
It tends to be, we'll sit at home in front of the TV and sort of age. But it's like my mindset, and I think a lot of people's mindset now is, I may be retired from my old career, but I'm still going to be doing something. I need to keep active. I need to stay healthy. I want to live a long time and enjoy my life as long as I can. And it's a great example, not only to make yourself feel better and feel like, you're taking advantage of life in all different ways, but also as an example to your children that like, hey, you're going to put in a lot of work as you get older. It's going to be a lot of ups, a lot of downs. But then look at what, I've been through my whole life, and you're going to have an opportunity to do so many great things, and no need to rush. There's no need to.
There's no timeline.
That's another big thing, is that so many people have the idea that I need to have all these check boxes done by the time I'm 25. I need to have the degree, the 6-figure job, the big house, the whatever. And it leads people to sometimes make choices that may not be the best, but for the desire of saying, at least I did that part, but then is that going to cost you down the line?
Yeah, definitely no timeline. And I tell my kids this too, because, my son took a little bit longer with school because he had health issues come up and other issues came up in his life. But there's really no timeline. Like, who wrote the timeline of go to high school, go to college, get a degree? Like, that's just sort of society's timeline and pressure, but really there is none. You do you, and your time is your time. Like, when it's time to buy the house, when it's time to have kids, it's you do it when you're ready for it.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it any better there too. Well, Chi, this has been a great conversation, and thank you so much for teaching me a lot about what you've been through, and thank you for teaching the audience about
Thanks
that
for
too.
having me.
Absolutely. I really think people are going to enjoy this, and I would love to have you come back on again someday too. And
Awesome.
Let me know what the update is. So if people wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you for your interior design business?
My website is at designsbychi.com, and then I'm on Instagram too. Same handle, designsbychi.
All right. Well, we'll link him up in there in case anybody has any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chi, for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, thank you. Bye, everyone.